Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fine.
How about that? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. It wasn't that the mic was muted, it was that the it was the OBS had screwed up. I'd been playing around with my interface. Anyways, I'm gonna start over. All right? Guys, yesterday sucked, but it's okay. I'm feeling really good today. And you know, it could have been worse because I could have held through that. Man, after the auction yesterday, come and look at the chart here. Look at that doozy of a move after the auction. Crazy, crazy, crazy stuff. I mean, it was okay for a little bit, and then it just it plunged. It was like after the auction was sorted out, they realized oh, this is really bad. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure what's going on. I mean, I kind of feel like they were selling it this whole time, and they were going to sell it no matter what anyways. But that's where we're at in the treasuries. They did not kind of pass this kind of support area over here. But hey, the day is young. Here's the S&P 500. You know, having another one of those spikes and then selling it. So the S&P kind of being a little bit not itself lately, not looking so hot. Oil coming back a little bit. There is news or rumors that they're going to have a deal with Iran that will bring more oil on the market again, sort of a thing. Gold and silver kind of taking some losses yesterday, and copper continuing to languish. Things in China continue to be rough. Bitcoin took a little bit of a jump and then sold. And then you've got the dollar strengthening yesterday. By the way, I should point out that those moves, you know, were kind of correlated with the currencies. You can see here as well, you know, like the Japanese yen took it. So there's basically what I'm seeing happen is they are selling the treasuries and they are moving into dollars, which is not your normal correlation. So what's going on? Well, it seems to me like some money is moving around. Like maybe they think that inflation is subdued in the United States, but not other places. I don't know. But then you would think that would be a good reason to bring your money over into dollars. But that would be a good reason to bring your money over into dollars. But to sell treasuries, I guess, I don't know. The whole thing is kind of is a weird correlation. Okay, so the numbers that we're getting now are going to be U.S. PPI, the Producer Price Index. We are looking for core PPI to be spot 2 month over month. We got 2 minutes here. And thank you, NJ, for telling me that my microphone was not working. And good morning, Octavius. Oh dear. Paul Krugman says that we are extremely unlikely to encounter aliens. That means that is going to happen now, right? Nassim Taleb, correct on Bitcoin as always. When I said people lost interest in Bitcoin, it was based on this. Bitcoin volume is slowly disappearing, down 85% from the peak. As volume drops, manipulations become easier, but at some point, manipulators will need to exit. This is how open Ponzi's implode. He's totally right. Elon Musk talking about the fight. Fight will be managed by Mayans Foundations, not UFC. Livestream will be on this platform in Meta. Everything in camera fame will be ancient Rome, so nothing modern at all. I spoke to the Prime Minister of Italy and the Minister of Culture. They have agreed on an epic location. They're going to do it in the Colosseum. This is ridiculous. Okay, so 10 seconds. Okay. It's higher than forecast. Okay. So the micro is being a little bit weird here. I'm gonna take a little risk here. These ones haven't been working out for me lately, but that one so far is looking good. So with PPI heating up, I that's a little concerning to me. The kind of like, how do I put it? The very disorganized reaction there from the treasuries is very interesting because, I mean, that's a clearly inflationary number. So PPI month over month spot 3 versus an expected spot 2, and then core PPI month over month spot 3 versus an expected spot 2. Right? So, that is really interesting, the reaction. Very illiquid market still, I would say. So, you know, when I was looking back on it yesterday, because I was like, okay, not doing so well, what do we need to do about this? When I looked back at my trades, it was not trading unreasonably. It was, the losses were larger than they should have been. And when it really came down to it, you know, like, this market is a little illiquid. It is a summer market still, even though it's been a very active summer market. And so I think that's where it's kind of been getting me, is the liquidity, you know. And so when they were moving down yesterday, you know, those bids would just like melt. It just completely disappear in front of the move. Not melt, they would evaporate. So, now here on this PPI, you're seeing an extremely illiquid market and not as much volume as I would have expected. Like, we moved down, well, actually we moved down about 8,000 contracts there. But it just, the way that it played out was a little, you know, it was kind of hops and skips. Not sure what to think of that. So now that we've got that sorted out, I would like to know for you guys watching the stream, how does the stream sound and look? Is everything okay? Is the video playing smoothly and so forth? Because I did change some OBS settings last night and increased the bitrate. Sound is good. You got crushed yesterday and you went down in size today? Makes sense. I mean, given this market, it really, we could kind of behooves us, I think, to be a little cautious, right? Well, now it's so you see it right there. Like, look at how many contracts it took to push it down through here, right? 300, 200, 300, 300, right? It's a little illiquid here, and even like what they're pushing lows, that's 100 contracts there, right? Well, I would hope that it takes more than 300 to clear 16.5, but man, video's good too. Didn't notice anything special. Okay, cool. Yeah, with me changing the bitrate, I wouldn't expect you to notice unless you were like holding things up full screen and trying to look at the numbers and stuff. So, but I was concerned that the higher bitrate and stuff would maybe affect the viewers, like, it would increase. I don't know how YouTube does it, so I was just was a little being cautious about it. Okay, so it took it, well, okay, so about 1,000 contracts just traded there. So 2,400 contracts traded at 16.5, but half of that was on the offer. So there was 1,000 on the offer. You can see a very strong imbalance between the bids and the offers. That it's very easy for them to take bids out, and it's 2 or 3 times as much to take out offers. Okay, but at least here in the micros, the liquidity has come back. I'm so lucky that I got the price that I did. Okay, so we do appear to be kind of in this in a little bit of a vacuum area though. What about the dollar? What's the dollar doing? The dollar is rising as well. So the same correlation we saw yesterday, dollar up, treasuries down, which to me is like signs of like inflation concerns. Okay, let's come back over here. PPI, comma, Michigan will give further clues on inflation's stickiness. So basically, their article's not up yet. Hey, Gary, you're here earlier than usual. What's up? Yeah, I'm not enjoying this relatively illiquid market. So now that we've kind of come to a point like that, though, that's a good time to reset our DOM. Have you? Yeah. So, I'm not able to watch them so closely, but yesterday's auction was super weird, right? Like, I don't know. The thing that I find the weirdest about everything that happened yesterday is that, like, the news media and the broader market seems to not care. But like, you know, we had the auction. I watched the action on the auction. Treasuries, you know, the liquidity completely pulled. There was a little bit of a jump there, and then like they kind of settled and like nothing happened. And then like 5 minutes later, the selling came back in, and it just went and went and went and went. Maybe a pullback to VWAP. Well, VWAP at 21, I think we kind of already touched. Well, we came a little bit short of that, didn't we? Now, what I'm seeing here, it was that we have created a pretty illiquid area between 17 and 19, and they're kind of ranging across that. So we'll see if the sellers are like really desperate to sell here or not, you know. Because one of the issues that I think you're going to get in a situation like this is they want to sell, but you know, they want a good price for it. They're kind of trying to space it out and everything. When you get down to the lows, are there people puking? Well, I would hope that there's not a ton of people that were dumb enough to get long through that, but it could happen. Likely to trade six. Well, there you go. Likely to trade 16. It was so funny yesterday. Somebody emailed me because they were having trouble understanding the pricing scheme that you got. Oh, you know what? I just realized that I have these backwards. That might explain a little bit of the weirdness I've been seeing here. I felt like these micros weren't quite going along with things as well as they should. It's because this is the 5 and this is the 30, and the 30 is lagging a little bit here today, and that's why my 10-year is not going quite as fast as I would want. Okay, anyways though, so when I read like Zero Hedge's synopsis of the day, you know, they didn't really say too much about it. I guess because they were like, I don't know, the market kind of seems to think that it wasn't like a huge move or anything. But they blamed it on the auction, and I'm like, well, like, it did decline after the auction, but it would not, like, it stayed there for a while first. And the thing is that they were selling into the auction. They were selling into the CPI news, which was good. I suspect that whoever it was that came in selling yesterday was going to sell no matter what, you know, like that has the hallmarks of a really large meta order, possibly from a sovereign wealth fund that maybe their selling had nothing to do with anything going on in the markets for all we know, you know. Do you trade the 20? Well, no, they don't, we don't really have a 20 over here, right? Super. Yeah, like the selling yesterday, if it was, if the whole thing was a meta, because that's the thing, is it maybe it was one meta order and then another meta order, or maybe it was the reactions to news or auctions, or who knows, but the meta order that killed me was sneaky. And again, like, that was the problem, was like, it was really difficult to see that, like, the balance of the action was selling until it was like way too late, and then the market was a little illiquid. So, like, you know, the point that you've decided, oh, I need to get out, like, the bids just melt out from underneath of you and you just have to puke. No trading for a while. Am I not the only guy that got screwed over yesterday? I hope y'all weren't trying to do the same trick, you know, like trying to follow me or something. I mean, yesterday was just, we've had a lot of unusual moves lately in the treasury site, but yesterday's was particularly nasty, I felt. Yeah. Oh, that's right. Cool. I had to write on something over here that was plastic. And I left it out on my desk because I was afraid that it was going to smear. And I just tested it and it was fine. So cool. Okay, so down tick there. And all three of them going through, and maybe some steepening coming back in. Flow is looing tricky again. I know this the flow that we're getting right now is a lot more direct. I mean, we are definitely in a liquidity hole kind of an area and bouncing around in there, but the balance of the market volume has been short. ZT is pushing. So you see how much further the 30-year moved that time? So some steepening coming back. It was initially a flattener, and now it's steepening. So there's them trading a decent amount at 16 there again. So from here, we should expect to encounter a little bit more liquidity at 16 and a few prices below that. But then we can see, like, if the sellers push it, that we could get another dislocation, right? That's what I'd hope to see. Well, 15.5 pulled pretty hard there, didn't they? Yeah, that downtick from 16 to 15.5 looked really strong. I think it was because the 5 years slumped a little bit there. But they seem okay for now. Okay, there was 400, 600. Ooh, that's not good. That's not good. They come in. Yeah. Yeah. Wait, isn't it better to plot the order flow on the chart? Well, there's a lot of, okay, so cumulative delta on a chart, I think, is incredibly useful. And I would not be trading an instrument without having the cumulative delta on there. Wow, look at that offer at 14.5 now. Jeez. Okay, cumulative delta is super useful, okay? But there's a lot of things that I can see here on the DOM that you're not going to see on the chart, right? And that's kind of the thing, is like, so when you come back and you look over here, like 15, like look at how many contracts it took to clear it. 600, 600, 500. I think that this one that's 49 was actually a little bit more than that the first time that it ticked down, okay? I can see how much it took to clear it every time, and I can see very clearly that there is not a lot on the bid. Okay, now there is at 13.5, so let's reset to 15.5, okay? But you don't see that on the chart very well. And the issue is that, you know, if we come back, because us hitting into that order and everything, we may form another kind of liquidity hole kind of an area, and we might bounce back up and like fill in that area between, you know, below 16. And so the thing is if you go and you look at like a footprint chart or a volume profile chart, right, you're not going to see that on that initial decline that the bids just completely evaporated underneath of us, right? And so that's why I feel that you really do need to watch the DOM in the end. Like, there is some things that I can see on the DOM that I have not seen a chart that accurately reflects this very well, right? Like, the whole thing is that the chart kind of like is aggregating too much data. It's like I need to see the data that was like, what was the current thing at each moment? Or put it in another way, with more technical terms, because for those of you that have been here for, every day, I need to see what's going on with the latent liquidity, and the chart just doesn't give me a very good picture of that, because to me it's, okay, well, they might trade there a bunch of times, but it matters that every time that it traded there, that it only took 600 contracts to clear, right? So, weird request, but could you ever do a daily routine video? That's one of the ones that's always kind of been on my list that I haven't done. But, like the thing that I think what you really want to know is I go to newssquawk.com/blog on my phone first thing when I wake up and read their European session synopsis and stuff. That's the main thing is I get up, I want to read what was the overnight news. And that's the big thing. And then I come in, and when I come in here on the stream, I've read that, and that's it. Like when I'm looking at these charts, this is the first time me seeing the charts. But you notice when I go through that rundown, I generally know what happened because I read the News Squawk synopsis. There they go again. They front ran ahead of the CPI release the day before. When the number was basically flat, it gapped and faded all the way back. The Vorta, I don't know what you're talking about with that, Gary Rich, but wow, they just got slaughtered there. I should have added on this. I think given the illiquid market here that it's not a good idea for me to add, but and given my foibles earlier in the week, but that's a good move, man. Right? So when I see it, it's like there's 5,000 trades at 13.5. They hover there. It was only for like 3 minutes, and then again they just plow through it. On the heat map, yeah, I don't feel like that those heat maps are that useful, because the thing is again, like, the resting liquidity is not that useful on its own. Like that there's a 2646 at 10 doesn't really matter. One thing that you might see that I think does matter is when you're declining and you can see a lot of liquidity getting added on the offer, for instance, right? That I think is useful. But again, you see that on the DOM. What matters is what the bid was and then how much traded, and the difference between those two things, right? There's 2,200 at 13. If we then clear 13 on only 500 contracts, that matters. That means that the market makers pulled all of their orders and we are still in a very illiquid market. And so what you're actually seeing is that the latent liquidity, which is what actually trades over time, is actually much less than what the resting liquidity shows. And you can get the same thing the other way with icebergs and stuff, for instance, right? And then, but it also matters, like it trades down 500 contracts, it trades down 500 contracts, and over the course of like 5 minutes, it does that over and over again, but it's never more than 500 contracts. That matters a lot, because that's where some of the stylized behaviors that we see in an order book come from. It's that how the latent liquidity reacts to things. How do you get a grip of what the latent liquidity looks like, or whether it is still damaged or has been replenished? Do you simply pay attention to how hard or easy it is for orders to move price, and how visible liquidity on bids and offers behaves when... Yeah, exactly. Bids and offers, not prices, but that's what I meant. Yeah. Exactly. Like I'm looking over here and seeing that, like, okay, they're trading back towards the low again. Only 600, 700 contracts to clear those prices. So the latent liquidity is still pretty low in this location, and that's why it's so easy for them to slump back to the lows, despite a pretty convincing pullback to 13.5, right? Yeah, that's a liquidity hole. Exactly. So like the thing that happened, the reason that we were so stunned was that they had formed a little bit of a liquidity hole here in this like 19.5 to 17 area, right? And so what you would expect then at that point is for there to be a little, you know, if you were to go a little bit lower, the book should be stronger in that location, right? But then what happened? They were able to clear 16 and they just slipped through. So that liquidity that normally would be below us was not there. The market makers were not willing to hold bids, and that's why we slipped down into this area. And then we saw an iceberg at 13.5, so we kind of started to do that at 13.5, and then we slipped again. And we did that very quickly as well, right? So the very quickly as well, that's not as much about the latent liquidity, right? That's more about how anxious are the market orders to sell this, right? But what you're getting right now is the market orders are very much imbalanced to the short side, and that the bids are just super weak. Like you would never see that by just looking at the DOM, right? Because when I look at the resting orders, there's nothing unusual, right? There's 1,400 on this side. There's 1,400 on this side. But you can see very clearly they just plow through those bids like they're not even there. Does Jigsaw allow you to see COB, SVP, and I don't know what those stand for. Maybe it does. Man, so now so remember when I was saying maybe a little bit of steepening is coming in here? Well, there was briefly, but on that last move, they just completely canceled it out, right? Because the 5-year just completely plunged there. I'd say some of this stuff. Okay, so there is a little bit more liquidity at that spot. A little bit more bid liquidity on that spot. Oh, look at that big order at 05. Really? You know what? I think we need to come back and look at a volume profile here just to kind of get our bearings. Like, where are we at within all of this? Well, okay, so here was this big move. If we're going to retrace that big move from, what was that, Friday? Last Friday? That would be 06.5. So down here, not where the big order is. So I don't know why the big order is down there at 05. But we're retracing single prints at the moment. Session volume profile and current volume profile. Well, so on their Vista chart, you know, it's just going to show you the resting liquidity essentially. But they also have like regular charts, and on those regular charts you can add a volume profile. So I guess you could say that you get those things eventually. Yeah. Yeah. No, on Jigsaw. You can show a volume profile on Jigsaw. Here, you want me to pull one up so you can see what it looks like? Their volume profile is actually really cool. Their volume profile is actually really cool. And number. One more last question. How much homework studying do you do on the weekends to prep for the weekend? Basically, I basically just disconnect. Okay, well, so I do studying on the weekend because, like, right now I'm studying for Series 3. Right now I'm studying for Series 3, but I try to let's see here. I think what I actually want is this with do both. So they got this thing that will show you the TPO and the volume profile next to each other. I think that's kind of cool. And then you can also, if you got a good look at that, man, are they going on those lows again? This is like a really nutso move, guys. Okay, if I do like regular candles, let's just say let's do 5-minute candles, right? Okay. Oh no, what happened? It was fine, and then oh, there we go. Okay, it decided to reload data. Then there's also indicators that you can add, right? So then I can add volume profiles this way. You have session profiles? I think so. So I said volume profile type selectable. I can go to sessions. Okay. There you go. Now it's showing me a session volume profile. I have to say, like, because it's kind of been a journey with the Jigsaw charts, because it's taken them a long time. I mean, they started working on this before COVID, and it's kind of been slow going, and there's been lots of, you know, stumbles here and there. But like, what they have is a really good product. Like it looks really good and is really flexible. They don't have spreads. Like, that's the main thing that's keeping me from just going full Jigsaw everything, is that they don't have spread charts. But they're awfully close. If they had the spreads in there, yeah, I think all they would need to do is add spreads, and then I could use only Jigsaw charts. I would love to be able to change the look of these as well, because I would kind of prefer a black background, but whatever. Okay. So it is a little weak down in here, but a lot is traded in that 11.5 spot. And I am in fact getting some signs of pushback now. So if we are going to go to further lows, we may have to wait for a while. This is where it's like, oh yeah, you got a really good winner, Seth? How about we just retrace the whole thing? No, I think this goes back to what Octavia said. No hero trades today for sure. Yeah, probably not. which means that I should probably err on the side of holding it too long. Nassim Taleb has been really active on Twitter this morning. Yeah. Nice winner you have there. Would be a shame if we retrace the whole thing. Yeah. Well, you know, it's only been 30 minutes. I'm sure that the offers are a little bit vulnerable. You can see it there in the 5-year, like there's a little bit of liquidity is traded there at 12.5. There's 1,000 lots traded both when 12.5 was bid and offered, and now there's a big order there. So, and now there's decent amounts trading at 12.75 as well. Okay, so there is some mean reversion going on here. The offers are definitely a lot stronger than the bids were when we were moving, right? Well, okay, 339 is not a whole lot, but it didn't hold. It kind of looks like we're in one of those things where we're stuck between when you get two nodes like this, right? Basically, you've got like a, hold on. What do we? Oh, you know what? Where's my stupid little what is it called? G-Ink. There it is. Oh, do I have it in here? Ah, there we go. That's what I need. Okay. There we go. So there's a little bit, there's a bit of a hole here, and there's a bit of a hole here. And so what it's doing is it's kind of used that as a slingshot. Right? But what's likely to happen is it comes like that. And then maybe we could do that. Maybe not. Maybe that's the end. But it's just kind of like, think about it. Think of it as like holes, right? Right? Where these volume nodes end up being often are like the bottom of those holes. And so, you know, travelers are likely to slide into those holes. We'll see. So this move up here, is the longest rise of cumulative delta that we've seen here. So that was a true pullback there that we had. Maybe they start trading it the other way. Maybe there's a large meta order long. There'd be no way for me to know, right? So let's, now that things have kind of cooled off, I suspect that we're in the period where they should chill out and start to balance around 13.5, and then maybe later, like maybe, well, we could still have a bit of a move before the E-mini, but you know, it's time for them to start preparing for the E-mini to start up. So let's come over here to Zero Hedge and see if they have a good synopsis of PPI. Okay. Producer prices rose more than expected in July. Money management fees soar. After yesterday's mixed picture from CPI, all eyes are on producer prices for signs of stickiness in the pipeline for consumer prices. Against the expectations of a spot 2 month-over-month rise, headline producer prices rose more than expected, a spot 3% month-over-month, the biggest jump since January of 2023, pushing the year-over-year rise up to 0.8%. In July, the increase in final demand services was led by a 0.5% rise in the index for final demand services. Prices for final demand goods edged up 0.1%. The index for final demand, less foods, energy, and trade services moved up spot 2% in July, the largest increase since the spot 3% rise in February. For the 12 months ending in July, prices for final demand, less goods, energy, and trade services advanced 2.7%. Final demand services. The index for final demand services increased 0.5% in July, the largest rise since moving up 0.5% in August of 2022. Leading the broad-based advance in July, prices for final demand services, less trade, transportation, and warehousing climbed 0.3%. Margins for final demand trade services rose 0.7%. The index for final demand transportation and warehousing services moved up 0.5%. Trade index measures changes in margins received by wholesalers and retailers. Product detail. 40% of the July advance in the index for final demand services can be traced to a 7.6% rise in prices for portfolio management. Oh, okay. The indexes for machinery and vehicle wholesaling, outpatient care, chemicals and allied products wholesaling, securities brokerage, dealing, investment advice, and related services and transportation of passengers also moved higher. Conversely, margins for food and alcohol retailing declined 2.5%. The indexes for application software publishing and long-distance motor carrying also fell. Final demand goods. Prices for final demand goods edged up 0.1% in July after no change in June. The July increase is attributable to the index for final demand foods, which rose 0.5%. Prices for final demand goods, less foods and energy, and for final demand energy were both unchanged. Within the index for final goods in July, prices for meats rose 5%. The indexes for gas, fuels, hay seeds, oil seeds, utility natural gas, and motor vehicles also moved higher. In contrast, prices for diesel fuel dropped 7.1%. The indexes for gasoline, fresh fruits and melons, and plastic resins and materials also decreased. The pipeline for PPI appears to have inflected for now. Putting all of this together, it appears inflation is stickier than many had hoped. Do you get all of your news from NewsSquawk/Financial Juice and Zero Hedge, or do you suggest any financial newspaper subscription? Good question. So I also have a Bloomberg digital subscription, but I haven't really enjoyed that. I don't feel like I get that much from Bloomberg. I did it originally because it was like there was a couple of stories I wanted to read and I couldn't read them. They were on Bloomberg. But like since that has happened in the year that I've had it, it's been almost useless and I don't read it very frequently. I do want to pick up some other ones. I would like to try the Wall Street Journal for a little bit. Another one is Macro Hive. That would be probably pretty useful to us. But I think before I do that, I probably will end up getting the pro subscription from Zero Hedge, because the pro subscription from Zero Hedge, you know, gives you tons of those analyst reports, and that's the stuff that I really, you know, I find the most valuable. You know, like stories like this where Zero Hedge, where they go into the data, those are really useful as well. Although in this one, they didn't really tell you anything that you wouldn't glean from just reading the report, did they? So that one was a pretty straightforward summary of it. But I think that their conclusion is right. When you look at CPI and PPI combined together, you still see a picture where inflation is more sticky than people were hoping for. Right? I had Wall Street Journal before with some student discount. I liked that one. Daily Shot usually has some interesting stuff. Yeah, well, it seems to me like the Wall Street Journal is focused a little bit more on the things that we're focused on, which is like what's going on at the Federal Reserve. That's why I'm interested in them, right? So they seem to have the best handle on what the Fed is thinking. FDA drops ivermectin bombshell. FDA explicitly recognizes that doctors do have the authority to prescribe ivermectin to treat COVID. Okay. Oh, another story I missed here. China had to bail out 1 trillion yuan in hidden LGFV debt by shifting it to provinces. And we did move down a little bit here. So far, it's just at the bottom end of this liquidity hole that we've had around 13.5. Dr. Sinclair is a fan of ivermectin. I don't know. I remember when that whole thing was going on, and it was just really weird to me that there was some people that seemed to be so upset about ivermectin. But yeah, sometimes it's really hard to sort out what's going on in the world right now, because you definitely have moneyed interests out there that protect their interests through media, and we as people don't necessarily have a clear way to know when that's happening and when it's not. I guess you could assume that it's always happening, but so I don't know. I never completely understood why there was this huge we hate ivermectin, because it kind of seemed like it was it might work, and there's not really any major downsides to using it, so you might as well try it and see what happens, sort of a thing. But no, they were like, oh, you can't take that. It was such a weird one. So to see the FDA coming out and saying, oh yeah, they can prescribe it to treat COVID now, is like a huge shift. That is, but especially for people on the right, they're gonna view that as a huge, what is the word? That's the FDA, giving in on that one, admitting defeat on that one. Dr. Sinclair, not related to COVID though. He specializes in delaying and preventing aging. Okay, so. That reminds me of something. Okay, so have you noticed this obsession amongst really rich people about prolonging life? I mean, I'll see a lot of all-in podcast clips on a TikTok, and man, when there's one guy in particular. When they start talking about the science behind all of this and everything, he gets really animated. That is his passion, is living forever. And I'm starting to learn that is an obsession among many of the elite. And part of it is just because that's one of the places where the science is kind of making huge strides, and that could have really crazy implications to the future, but they're obsessed with this, right? Okay, so then fast forward, what's his name? The InfoWar guys, the InfoWars guy, the conspiracy theory guy. Why can't I remember his name all of a sudden? Well, it's probably better that way for the YouTube algorithm. Anyways, he was on Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan was like, okay, so what do you know? What do you... Yes, Alex. That's right. It was Alex. Alex was on Joe Rogan, and so Joe Rogan asked him about aliens, and Alex Jones starts going on about this stuff about how the rich are concerned with transcendence and living forever and all of these sorts of things, and honestly, I felt like it fell apart really quickly. All of a sudden, he was just putting out word salad of stuff that doesn't really mean anything anymore. Maybe it meant something to him, but to me it was just this is just nonsense. It went that way really, really quickly. But they were talking about all of these things, and there was some of these things that he talked about in particular that were things that I had kind of seen hinted at by Elon Musk. So now I'm thinking, what is actually happening with Alex Jones is he's going over to Elon Musk's house, and they're smoking weed, and then Elon Musk is just saying BS, And then Alex Jones is like, oh, this is what the elites are worried about. This is what the deep state is doing, and all of these things. I'm really starting to think is all of what Alex Jones says just him taking what Elon Musk says to him when they're smoking weed too seriously? Elon hates Alex Jones? Okay. Maybe it's somebody else then. I just felt like he was taking something that he had heard from one conversation and like going way too far with it, you know? Oh, he won't unban him on Twitter. Oh, that is interesting. I hadn't heard anything about that, but now that I'm thinking about it, that is really weird that they have not unbanned him. Because of his Holocaust takes? Oh, that's, yeah. You know what? There's been some people on TikTok that have started to go into Holocaust history, and they share a lot of really interesting things. Steven Crowder bought him? Really? I hadn't heard anything about Steven Crowder in a while, but I'm kind of like not a huge fan of. You know what? Like, to be honest, I kind of get fed up with almost all of the right-wing media personalities, to be honest with you. I'm kind of fed up with all of them, to be honest with you. Like, Steven Crowder is a child. He's a man-child is really how I feel about Steven Crowder now. He's done so many, dumb decisions. Like he could have had it all. Like he could have been the top media personality for conservatism, but he acted like a child. Like, that's why he didn't need to get banned from YouTube. Like, he didn't have to go and start a mudslinging, name-calling fight with a gay leftist, but you did, and that's why he got banned. And then, he started all of these fights with like other right-wing people because he didn't feel like he was, so almost narcissistic sort of things, right? Like that wasn't enough. Like, what the Daily Wire offered him would have been an amazing deal, and he passed on that one, right? So I'm fed up with, I don't really care about him anymore. And not only that, but he was great 2015, but now he's like, he hasn't really put out any good content since then. I haven't really seen anything all that great from him lately. Okay. So then there's like Ben Shapiro. Well, okay, so Ben Shapiro is, I'm really amazed at how successful Ben Shapiro has been. But like his reaction to the Barbie movie thing, like, yeah, I understand that there was some messaging that seems to be hidden in Barbie that's like not good and everything, but the whole go and like burn all of my Barbies, you're just playing to the right. You're just trying to create the drama so that you can get the views again. And so then that's what everybody thinks about the right, is that they go and they see a movie that they don't like and they burn their Barbies. So you're this crazy unhinged right-wing guy, right? So I don't like Ben for that. I'd say overall, he has a lot of pretty good content, but I do feel that he leans into the machine too much, Jordan Peterson. Well, so Jordan Peterson is definitely a smart fellow, but Jordan Peterson has now recently started to fall into the trap of commenting on things he knows nothing about as well. Right? Because it was in the past month or so, it was both Jordan Peterson and then this week it was Matt Walsh had made comments about ADHD. Basically like implying that ADHD was like a fake condition and that you shouldn't treat it with medication. It's like, man, Peterson changed when the Daily Wire brought him. Well, I kind of wonder though if it didn't free him, like that was the thing that I liked about Jordan Peterson before, was that he was able to go into the psychology and the like research, the sociological research, to kind of explain some of the things that we were seeing going about in society. A lot of leftists would always criticize him as saying, well, Jordan Peterson will point something out, but then he's not offering solutions or anything like that. Which was to me was like, that's the sign that you know that he's doing his job correctly, because Jordan Peterson's job is not a policymaker. He's not a politician. His job is not there to propose legislation and try and convince you to all jump on board it and all that sort of stuff. No, his job, as in the realm of psychology and sociology, is to help us understand what we're actually seeing and why those things are happening. And I felt like he did that really, really well, right? But now all of a sudden, like I said, he's going into fields that he knows nothing about, because it's very clear to me from the comments that he's made about it that he knows almost nothing about ADHD. You know, and again, like, so my issue is the online conservative media machine has become its own monster, essentially. And I feel that a lot of these conservatives are undermining the conservative movement so that they can get views. That's what I feel. You know? So maybe controversial opinion, maybe some of you left-leaning people agree with me, but Peterson is like an online version of Geraldo or Amari Pavlovich. I don't know about that, but I've never watched those guys enough to really see how that would be a comparison. He confused climatology with meteorology. Well, the climate thing is a completely, you know what? It's kaput. Yeah, it's a mismatch of disaffected liberals, boomers, and libertarians now. Well, okay, so here's the great strength and weakness of conservatism, is that conservatism is based on principles. Conservatism, you have principles. This is the way that we believe that we should be and the way that we should work, and then we make all of our decisions based on those principles. Okay? The problem, now that's a great way to live, and that's a great way to live your personal life, but the problem with that when you apply it to into national policy, right, is that what we think the world should be does not necessarily line up with, what ends up happening and what is reality, right? A lot of the times when it comes to public policy, you could go and you could have a policy that's like a terrible policy, but because of the situation and the people involved and all of these other things, it's successful in spite of all of that. It's successful in spite of the negative consequences about it, right? And the right seems to be incapable of knowing when to take the L and just be like, you know what, like, we kind of have to roll with this one. And you know what? The research says this, so we should go along with that, right? This is how you get these things where, like, some conservatives still live in the Stone Age when it comes to financial policy, right? They still want to go back to a gold standard. Well, like, look, we have all this data, like, we know how these things go now, and the end result is that if you want a large economy like we have, you can't do it based on a gold standard anymore, right? But these people, they can't let go of it. They're still stuck in the 70s. They're still arguing with Richard Nixon about it, right? It's just like, the world has been turning left for some time now. Well, I think that really what actually happened was that you have, like, the left and they have the right has their ideas and principles, right? And then you have the left, who their primary thing is just trying to progress things forward, right? And it just kind of happened to be that for a good time period, like particularly in the 90s, that the things that we were learning from, like, the science and so on and the society overall kind of aligned better with the left. It was like there was one thing that the left did not like, that did not line up with them at all, and that was free trade, right? But see, they had the ability to come in and say, well, we don't like free trade, but that's what makes some money, that's what's effective, and they just went along with it, right? And then but then they listened to the science on all of these other things, and it was great, right? Now what has happened in the last like 10 years is that the science has kind of started to go the other way against a bunch of, like, the left overreached, and now the science is saying they're wrong on all of these things. For instance, gender transition for kids. The science is, I would say, very decidedly against this policy of just transitioning everybody that has gender dysphoria. And I think that the more science that comes out, it will just become even more and more clear. But the left kind of ignores it and is kind of like lying to themselves about what the data actually is, right? It's just, it's kind of a weird thing. Now there's another one to, like, here's what the next one's going to be, is like, we are starting to learn some really interesting things about the climate. We're starting to learn some really interesting things about the climate. Like, did you see this thing from Hank Green where he was looking at how they changed the emission standards for ships crossing the ocean? So it used to be that these ships would all leave these kind of like clouds behind them, because they were basically seeding clouds from the stuff that they put up into the air, and you could see it from space. And they changed the emission standards, and that's not happening anymore. And because of that, there's less cloud cover over the seas. And so that's been heating things up, and that's maybe a part of why we're having such a strong El Nino year this year, right? And then another thing that's happened was there was that volcano eruption in Tonga that kind of flew under the radar, the news. I don't think I've ever spoken about it on this stream, but that threw a bunch of water vapor into the upper atmosphere, where it's acts as a very strong greenhouse gas, right? So I think that the climatology is you're going to find all sorts of new and interesting things about that, and who knows where that goes, What are you talking about? I don't know. A single conservative doesn't sound like a soft neoliberal progressive. I haven't been following the fires in Maui too closely, but I read this morning that 50 people died from that. That is quite shocking. Wait, what science is that? Are you talking about psychology? No, so like, if you go and you look at the more recent studies about gender transition, they do not support the gender transition. And it's kind of one of these things where, like, certain people were making studies to try and push a certain kind of like narrative. And, but then some countries like did some studies and stuff, and they said, oh, now this is not really this. We probably shouldn't be doing this. And so other countries kind of started backing away from that before the United States did. But it's one of those things where what happens is you go and you put out a research study and you have a certain abstract. And so most people only read the abstract, and then the media can come out and they can say, oh, see, this study supports that people are less likely to commit suicide if they gender transition. But when you actually dig into the data, it does not support that at all. Man, now you're asking me all these. I thought that I had seen somewhere where somebody was thinking about, oh, okay, yeah, there was. D, how many years do you think Trump will get in prison if found guilty? Do you really want to talk about this? Okay, here's what I think is going to happen. I do not believe that Donald Trump can get a fair trial in Washington, D.C., but I don't think that he will be able to get the venue moved. So if the trial goes forward in Washington, D.C. over the whole January 6th thing, he will probably be found guilty. And then what will happen is he will appeal that ruling, and it will go up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will rule in his favor. And if there is anything that he is like found guilty of, it'll be like really trivial. And meanwhile, he will have this opportunity to try and like re-adjudicate the whole was the election stolen thing, and go into all of the things where the courts didn't really allow them to dig, and you know, because that's kind of how I felt. It was like, well, if you actually, you know, had subpoenas and were really allowed to go in and like investigate, I think that you probably would find some suspicious things, right? But they, you know, every time that we got to the point to look at that sort of thing, the judge would say, no, there's not enough evidence to justify doing it. Now he has subpoena power in court. He's going to go back through that whole thing. Doesn't mean that he's going to prove that the election was stolen, but what it's going to do is it's going to give this opportunity for him to say to all the Republicans and people in the middle, like, that the election was stolen. That's what he's going to do. And so the net effect of Donald Trump, this January 6th trial thing, okay, is going to be more people believing that the election was stolen. More people believing that the election was stolen, and more support of Donald Trump. So I think that the left is shooting themselves in the foot here. They think that, like, Joe Biden is a weak candidate. The only chance that we have of beating him is if he has to go up against Donald Trump. So we're going to throw all of these lawsuits and stuff at him so that, you know, Donald Trump will, you know, Republicans will select him out of spite, and then he'll lose to Joe Biden. But really what they're doing instead is they're ensuring that Donald Trump does get selected, but then that he actually does stand a chance at beating Joe Biden, right? And then if he does win in that situation, like now he has a mandate, right? Like, he has a mandate to just, you know, demolish anything in the government that doesn't pledge full fealty to him. So I'm not a huge fan of what I'm seeing over there on that front, but that's what I think, how I think it's going to play out. Although just realize that you're talking about, you know, when you're trying to make predictions about something like that, there's just so many surprises that can come along that you never know, right? Is the ES DOM on the top left? Yes, that's correct. The US is a banana. Yeah, I am very concerned about how I am seeing the US justice system used for political purposes. I wouldn't call it a banana republic. It reminds me more of like Soviet Union shenanigans, right? Anybody that doesn't pledge fealty to the state party, they find a crime and prosecute you. You know, it's not good. And really, I just can't imagine the state of mind where you feel like that it's worth abusing the court systems like that. And you're right, and I think Uzi's right. It's once you've kind of set like the precedent, there's not much going back on it. What about Klaus Schwab? Well, so my recollection on Schwab was that he founded the World Economic Forum, right? So my commentary on that one is that there are some people on the conspiratorial side of the politics that are like really concerned about Klaus Schwab and what Klaus Schwab is doing. I think that Klaus Schwab is kind of like a non-factor now, because the whole point of the World Economic Forum was to support free trade policies, right? Well, from the 70s and all the way up until the 2010s, well, all the way up until the 2020 pandemic, you know, having free and open trade, that was a good thing. And, you know, I would say that the World Economic Forum actually did the world a service to some extent by trying to help us have better global economic policy. Okay, but now the world is globalism is waning, right? Because not only did the people get fed up with it, but the incentives for the individual countries has changed, and now everybody is focusing on building out their own supply chains because they've discovered that relying on other countries for portions of your supply chain is too big of a risk. So the World Economic Forum is not as important as it was. Now it's just a bunch of rich guys bloviating to themselves, right? So that's what I would say about that one. Probably not what you expected or wanted to hear, but I gotta tell you, I think one of the reasons I might come down on certain issues like those different from what you would expect a conservative person to say. I think a large part of that is because the people that I see on social media that are like influencers that talk about that sort of stuff are completely full of shit, right? Like the guys that are out there complaining about ESG and Klaus Schwab and globalism. Like, there's problems there. There are, okay? But the people that are talking about it, they have no fucking clue what they're talking about. They're no fucking clue what they're talking about. I'm not a moderate progressive. I'm a pretty far right conservative. I'm a far right conservative that actually understands economics. That's what I am. That's what I think I am. Because when I come down on, if you're going to talk to me about like social policy, okay, I think that all of the things that the people are doing out there is just stupid, right? I go on TikTok and the people complain about, oh, I went on a date and I had this problem. I'm doing this thing and I'm having this problem with women, and the girls are complaining about the men, and I'm over here like, okay, like I got married, we have kids. My wife does work on weekends, but for the most part, she spends most of her time taking care of the house, making dinner, and watching the kids. And I don't have any of those problems that you guys are talking about. I don't have any of those problems at all. And I think that y'all would just be better off if you just embraced the conservative social, way of doing things, which is when you're young, you date with the intention to get married and have kids young, and then you have a traditional relationship. Works well, and I think we'd all be better off if we did that. That's conservative. That's not just conservative. That's like far right social conservative. Nah, most progressives don't do that. Most progressives are just like stuck in a never-ending daydream of singleness. Every progressive is married with children? Well, that's interesting. I guess we could say that progressives have a far lower birth rate than conservatives right now, though, right? But it's not that dramatic. It's not so dramatic that like almost all progressives are childless. That's true. I think you'll be right in about a decade or so. Gen Z is going to be miserable and lonely. Yeah, maybe. I do see that because I can think back. I kind of feel bad talking about this, but so like when I was dating, when I became single, I dated a bunch, and there was 2 or 3 girls I can think of in particular where like it just really didn't work out very well. And there was one at the very beginning that I really liked, and I thought that we really had something going, but like I don't know why she behaved the way that she did, but I'm sure I'm not blameless, right? Because I was pretty fresh off the divorce, right? Anyways, after, several years have gone by, and, I still see her on Instagram and stuff, and like she's become pretty far left. So I'm like, oh, you know what? It's good. That wouldn't have worked out, because they were like going to far left rallies at the Capitol. I'm like, you realize that the people that put all those all on are communists, right? That's in Utah. The group of people that put those rallies and the guys that go to all of them are like hardcore communists. Like you'll usually see communist flag at those, right? I wouldn't go to it. You know, and of course there's always going to be bad people at a rally, but you know, I wouldn't want to be with that group of people, right? And yeah, so I'm like, oh, I dodged one right there, right? Of all of the girls, because I dated like hundreds of girls, and the ones that I got close with, like things worked out for all of them, except for those like 2 or 3 that were left. and I'm pretty sure now at this point that they're never gonna get remarried. Girl I thought I was gonna marry has gone so far left that she'd probably kill me given the chance. Right. Well, you know, this comes back to this really interesting argument that's going on from last week, right? The survey from The Hill where they polled like 12th graders, and they found that the boys were trending increasingly more conservative, and the girls were trending increasingly more liberal. And the liberals all freaked out, like, why are the boys going so conservative? It must be because of the alt-right pipeline on YouTube. They're being influenced by Andrew Tate too much, right? And then I'm like, well, okay, so then doesn't that mean that if women are trending so far left, that must also be because of the same reason, that they are being captured by the alt-left pipeline out there? There's an alt left. Well, I was just trying to use the same language on both sides, but you know, there is a left wing pipeline, right? It's like you start watching the Young Turks and all this other nonsense. Oh my gosh, I hate that YouTube channel. Oh my gosh. I tell you what, there are just so many influencers on both sides of the aisle, quite frankly, that say the dumbest things on social media, and it just drives me so crazy that when it comes to economic issues, that those are the people that are thrust to the front. So, like it was said yesterday, right? There was the one that like this guy was saying, oh, like inflation has come down, but I'm not feeling it in my pocket. Maybe the government is like, maybe the government is fudging the CPI numbers, etc., etc., etc. And it's like, okay, like you don't even understand what CPI is, because CPI coming down doesn't mean that prices come down. It just means that prices aren't going up as quickly as they were. That's all that means. You know, the prices are almost always going up. Deflation is a rare situation, and when it happens, it's very, very bad. We're just getting disinflation, which means that we move back to the 2% per year target, right? And this is the person that the TikTok gives the traffic. And it's almost always the people that I see that have the most likes are people that are sharing absolute nonsense. We're gonna have to come to terms with the fact that years of romanticizing mental illnesses is going to yield a society that requires authoritarian management. No, but that's funny. Oh man. They didn't get to the chapters on first derivatives at school. Exactly, Francesca. Like, I thought about making a video, and I'm like, okay, so you realize that what CPI is basically the first derivative of price, right? Price is going up. How much is it going up? What is the slope, right? The CPI is the first derivative of that, right? But then I'm like, you know, if I say that on TikTok, none of them are going to understand it. I've never had success with a video like that. I basically, at this point, I've given up on making, you know, like I keep thinking, oh, I see a video like that. And then I'm like, I want to make a video to contradict this and to teach people what's correct. But then it's like, why even bother? For whatever reason, the platform clearly doesn't like me as much as these other people that are getting all of the likes. And I used to think, you just need to keep at it and everything. But no, like, then I look back at it and I realized, like, oh no, wait, I've been posting on TikTok like almost consistently every day for like 3 years. And I'm still basically square one. Why am I wasting my time with it? There you go. China platform doesn't want accurate information. It wants confusion and anger. Yeah, it might be right. You might be right. You know what? There is one or two guys on there that I wouldn't say that they're conservative, but they do share, like, they correct this sort of stuff, and I think that they're pretty good. And one of the things that I find really interesting about these guys is that they're almost always making 3-minute videos, but people do watch them, and I've always had, you know, less people watch when I would go and make a 3-minute video. So, like, it's not the platform, it's you, probably. Probably. Well, it's probably a combination of them, right? When he tries to make good quality content, he gets no views. When he makes tutorials or other easy things, he gets a lot more. Yeah. So, you know, the way that that thing has gone is kind of really interesting to me. So if I go and I make a video about the platforms or about the computer hardware, those videos almost always do well. I think the reason for that is because there's just a lot more people searching for that, looking for that, interested in that, and that's why those videos do well. Okay, so then there's some other videos where if I try and go deep into a certain topic, people aren't searching for it, those videos don't do as well. But if I, like, then when I went and I basically, like, focused all of my content towards kind of driving people towards those videos, then those videos did end up getting the views in the end. Like YouTube eventually came along, but it took some work on my part. So I'm not 100% sure though how much. So like the whole thing on, like, China, you know, TikTok is just trying to negatively influence the American public, sort of a thing. I don't know if there's any way for us to know. And the reason I say that is because the other platforms do the exact same thing. You know? It does seem to me that China does want to push certain narratives on TikTok, but I think that those narratives have more to do with, like, you know, China are our friends, that sort of, you know, like, things that seem much more innocuous. Do you have to be sponsored to take the Series 3 test? No, you do not. I need to just get on with that because I did all of the reading and everything, but I haven't been doing, like, the actual studying for the test thing. Everything that I read in there was stuff that we already know. Like, this should be an easy test for me to pass. I just haven't been, like, going and doing the tests and stuff. The 5 is looking heavy. Agree. So we continue to see the curve flatten, right? What are you talking about? D, I've noticed a real shift, amazing shift. Notice who is the smartest kids in school and who is getting the great education type jobs. I don't know. Would you trade for Axia if they offered you a seat? I mean, I would love to trade for them, but I don't think that it would probably work out. Like, what is the word? I don't know if it would be practical, right? Like, you're really gonna have to offer me something amazing to get me to give up my day job, right? I love my day job, and they pay me really well, and I don't think that any such place would be able to offer me the same kind of consistent income. You know, I think that like a bank like Goldman or somebody like that could probably make it worth my while, but I don't think that a prop firm would. I heard that TikTok in China is entirely different and it's all educational content and actually a useful resource. Yes, that is true. Well, so TikTok has that too, though. Like, it's really weird. So TikTok has like a science stream now. So if you watch the science stream, then like all of the information that everything that you're watching is informative content, right? But it really seems to me like all TikTok is just another social network like Facebook or YouTube or Twitter. And the things that you're seeing and the stuff that we complain about in terms of why does TikTok seem to push this and this is just the same as any other social network. You know? So that's why this conspiracy theory doesn't really make sense, where they're like, well, China is only making TikTok to sow division and confusion in America. Why would they need to make TikTok to do that? We already have Twitter. I really feel that all TikTok did was just make it so that the algorithm is the only thing that matters. Your content that you're seeing is purely because of the algorithm. That's the only real difference. And short form content. That's it. Yeah, I have LinkedIn. I haven't been browsing LinkedIn as much as I should lately, but you can go and follow me on LinkedIn, and I would recommend that you do so, because then you can see what I'm liking and you'll find good content that way. So you know what? We've been kind of heavy. We've pushed the bottom side of this many, many times, but it looks to me like it's ranging. And I'm just now realizing that we are about 4 minutes out from the consumer sentiment. So yeah, you just search for Speculator Seth on LinkedIn, and I have a Speculator Seth page. And then I think you can find my normal profile from that. So let's see here. What are we looking for with sentiment? Okay, so for sentiment, we're looking headline number 71, spot 3. And then the 1 and 5 year inflation expectations. For 5 year, we're looking for 3%, and 1 year, we're looking for 3.5. 3.5 would be a slight uptick from 3.4 the month prior. So this, not quite sure how this one will go. Sure, certainly if this one was high again, I would say that the bids are already pretty exhausted, that you'd probably get an even more violent move to the downside. So I think it's worth it for me to try and hold this through it. Even though it is risky. I kind of feel like one of the problems I've been dealing with this year is that when I have things in my favor, I don't push it. And I should be. Seeing all global markets are in the red? Yeah, basically. The only thing that I see up today is gold at 0.18%. Everything else on my chart, on my thing, is red. So I think that basically what you saw was that PPI wasn't very good. Rates took a dive, and equities took a dive as a result. To the earlier conversation, if you want to see like something where it seems like China is like exerting specific influence over the algorithm, it's Taiwan. You start talking about Taiwan, then you start seeing stuff, right? Anybody makes a video about Taiwan, the like all of the comments are geared towards, yeah, it's a lost cause, just give up now. Okay, seeing the liquidity already pull a little early. Is the Great Salt Lake really that salty? Yes, it is very salty. Like you do float in it, but it's not fun to go and play in. People in Utah do not typically go to the beach at the Great Salt Lake. It's nasty over there. There's these weird kind of flies on the shore, and they just saw these problems. And then on top of that, MagCorp is putting all these chemicals into it. It's just gross. But it is very salty. Here we go. My mouth is feeling dry. I must be really nervous. Okay. 71 spot 2 versus an expected 71 spot 3. That is like the most in line I've ever seen. Okay, but the 1 in 5 year expectations are lower. 2.9 versus 3% and 3.3 versus 3.5. That's not like the end of the world, but that's definitely lower. So wasn't actually that much of an impulse on it though. Like we did spike up there for sure, but it wasn't actually on very many contracts at all. And I'm seeing more contracts now trade as we start to retrace it. So I'm gonna watch it here a little bit. Okay, some defense at 14.5. You see that they tried to clear it. They had to clear it 2 or 3 times before it actually went offer. Now there's 2,000 trading at it. People actually go there to swim in it. I mean, it's not a common thing for people to go and swim in it. And it's become less and less common as time went by. Like as a kid, like there would be one day where you would go and do it, but now you just never go over there. Like here's the thing, like outdoor and like, you know, like having a boat and wakeboarding and water skiing and stuff is a very popular hobby in Utah. You will find lots of people, even just regular middle-class people that have boats, okay? But they never go to the Great Salt Lake. They always go to the reservoirs up in the mountains. Oh, you're talking about Italy. Okay, sorry. So what I'm thinking now is, okay, PPI was bad. Consumer sentiment was maybe mildly good. I think that number one, that the PPI is more important. But I also think that there's just like some selling out there. So I'm kind of hoping that the sell meta orders come back in here and eventually do push us below that 14.5. But for now, the 14.5 is holding. So that probably would be a good reason for me to have gotten out of that. At the moment, I'm just kind of looking at where my position is, and I'm kind of like, there's, you know, I thought that my position was closer to what 110.26 is in ZN, but that doesn't appear to be the case. We're almost yesterday's close. In ZN? Or you must be talking about ES. Yeah, ES a little bit further up, and then we're at yesterday's close. Yeah, it's a good point, Gary, that it's a Friday. So now that we've had this move, you may find things move a little quieter in the treasuries now. But like, again, look at the cumulative delta in ZN, right? It's just flat after that news. You see some big candles, so there was some more trade there than there had been going into it, but there's not actually a real change. What do the numbers mean between the red and blue? Those are the market orders. So that's telling me how many market orders it actually took to try and clear that price, right? So there's a little iceberg at 16.5 right there. 1354 traded. A little iceberg kind of pushing down on us. Okay, they cleared it. 1465, 500 contracts bid. Few contracts hitting back into it, but they're stacking and then they trade up. See? Overall, I would say that the liquidity is a little bit more stable after this news than they were, because certainly after that PPI, the liquidity was just a complete mess, right? Okay. That 16 gave up a little easily. Yeah, exactly. Inflation was 3.3 versus 3.4, which isn't much, but the market seems there. I honestly, so Powell said something in one of the press conferences about, that inflation expectations is one of the key drivers of future inflation, and it's something that we pay attention to. And so that's why the market started paying a lot more attention to what that Michigan survey says. But I kind of feel like that the market cares too much about it, for starters. And then again, yeah, I think that like 0.1% difference in the expectations is not really a big deal either. There had been some times where they were like wildly off, and then that mattered, right? When was that? Let me come back. Is my memory correct here? Inflation expectations. Oh, they don't show me the estimates. Unfortunately, so I can't tell. No, I remember one time where the inflation expectation was like off wildly from the estimate, but otherwise kind of tends to be a nothing burger. Now the headline consumer sentiment, that matters, but that was pretty much in line as well, right? The one thing you could say is that news event did have the potential, because if we had come out and sentiment preliminary was 75 instead of 71.2, then this market would have like really taken it on the nose, right? Okay, so I am starting to see the market orders move towards the sell side again, and we're back to 14.5. So they did put up a little bit of liquidity there defending it, and the sellers seem to be taking it. We'll see if they've got more. They've got more in them or not. Backed off of it for now. Seems like, again, like somebody's playing defense. I guess it could be profit taking on shorts, but so let's read the story, because sometimes there's stuff inside of it that paints a more nuanced picture, right? One must watch inflation expectations signal from University of Michigan's sentiment survey was expected to continue July's rise in preliminary August data, but instead both short-term and medium-term expectations declined at 3.3%. The next 12 months expectations is the lowest since March of 2021. The headline sentiment print declined on the month, 71.6 to 71.2, with the current conditions rising modestly, but future expectations declining. Democrats' confidence declined in the August data, but independence rose. Buying conditions declined for houses, but soared for large household durables. Finally, we note that break-evens remain notably more muted about inflation expectations than the average American surveyed by the University of Michigan. Interesting. We only know which one was more right ex post, but break-evens have an empirically poor record of forecasting inflation, especially at turning points. Okay. Sounds like gibberish? Well, so I'll tell you how it affects price. So people having high expectations about the future and feeling good about the economy has a tendency for them to go out and spend more money. And so if people are out there willing to spend more money, that means more money going into the markets, and that means that your equity market is going to have a tendency over time to rise because of those buy orders. So it's something that we can look at that can help us predict future orders. And same with inflation expectations. Expectations about future inflation is one of the key drivers of inflation. If people are anticipating that inflation is going to rise in the future, then they start doing things now to prepare for that. Meaning they're more actively trying to get a pay raise. They're trying to make their big purchases now so that they can buy it now before the prices go up, et cetera, et cetera. And so that drives inflation expectations. That's why the treasury market took a little bit of a pop on that news. I'm not sure what you mean by the economic indicators follow the same suit. You got to keep in mind that, reading what the flows will be off of an economic indicator is like a really complicated thing. So what I'm saying here in this situation is, okay, so there was the knee-jerk reaction on it. Now that news is out of the way, there may be some flows that were waiting on that news before they went and executed. And I suspect that they're going to be along with the larger trend, which will be short, which is why I'm still short despite those numbers being a little bit better than expected. If you really need to see it on a 1 minute to trade, then you should pull up your own chart, man. I guess you weren't here for this whole thing where the only reason that we have this chart up there is so that when new people come in, they have something that looks familiar to latch onto. Because, the rest of the screen is pretty intimidating, so we got to throw them something that they go, oh, okay, he's looking at the S&P 500. And then they stick around long enough to figure out what we're doing with the rest. I think I'm just going to keep my eye on the 10-year DOM over here. So there was a little bit of selling. There was some pushback or maybe falling back. It kind of looks like
a mix. I think I need to give it a little bit more time, but I'm becoming a little bit less, what is the word? A little bit less sure of meta order continued selling. They may just kind of waffle around here now. That's a weird name, by the way, MDHC Clothing. So do you have like a channel that has something to do with clothing? You sell your own shirts or something? Oh, that's weird. A little bit of a short impulse there, bringing him back to 15. I don't know. For them to break down and out of this area, they still got to get past that 14.5, right? It seems like the sellers are a little bit afraid of that price now because they weren't able to clear it last time. You using Bookmap now? Cool story, bro. If you're using Rhythmic, you could conceivably use both of them, couldn't you? I suppose you could. So I'm starting to get some price volatility in this range, which reminds me very much of what happened yesterday, right? Where we'd get in this area, but like it was moving up and down 4 ticks quite randomly. That move up there also was contrary to the volume, but the dollar was moving in, so I think that's why they did that. When I look back on it, the Japanese yen spiked really hard on that news and then completely retraced it, which is a little bit of a divergence from what the Treasury is doing. And they're deciding to push a little further. Could be. Well, what I can see for sure is that the dollar is declining a little bit here, and that's causing the treasuries to go back in correlation with it, which is really frustrating because, like, here I definitely got a good trade on it, and it is coming all the way back on me. Fetch. That pisses me off. And it's doing so in a way that kind of says to me, like, hang on, Seth. Because really what's going on here is, like, I could have taken it off before the news, gotten a good thing, and then if I really believe that they're going to come back here, I could be getting back in, right? Then I'd have more risk to play with. So, I made my choices. They just they didn't work out the best for me today.
Well, the S&P 500 definitely has been moving pretty positive since that consumer sentiment number, huh? What do you think of Nav? I don't know what else to say about it. He's a guy. I hope someday he writes a book. That's one thing I can say for sure, is I hope someday he writes a book. But I don't know if he's the kind of person that would do that. Probably just wants to be left alone. So I'm feeling, you know, I'm going quiet. I'm kind of like thinking here about how I'm feeling at the moment. I'm unhappy about how this has gone. Am I like tilting now? I'm not sure I feel normal. But when I look at it and I see that cumulative delta and it's still just been flat over the past hour, and I'm like, well, I should be able to, you know, it looks like there's still selling coming through. So don't feel well. The issue is I'm trying to think through it, and the question in my mind is, am I still seeing this clearly? And I think that I'm still being pretty rational about it, but at the moment the market's not giving me a whole lot of clear information to interpret anyways, right? So what was that? It was ES. That was a bid in ES. Well below us though. It's that bid right there at 44.85. See, so you get into this spot where it's like, so we've been sitting at 17.5 for a while and nothing's happening. Delta and price are certainly diverse. Yeah, price went up and Delta didn't. But like the way that I read that is just there hasn't been a change in the market orders. What you know, there's still a possibility that there are meta order sells out there. In fact, we're seeing cumulative delta in the 10-year move down towards lows of the day. In fact, so kind of like the flow that I've been writing this whole time still seems to be out there. Well, I don't hold it on like a straight stop though, right? I want to see something in the flow that explicitly says that I'm wrong before I give up on it. I mean, I do have a limit, but it should be, you know, I should be getting out long before that limit's ever reached. Okay, so there was a pop and it's retraced. We'll see if they can attack that 14.5 again. I mean, what I'm seeing right now kind of suggests to me that the meta order sell is there. Right? like that. So this can play out in an interesting way, because what happened? Well, okay, so first there was the news, and then there was a move in the dollar, right? But what's happening? The guys in the 10-year are using that pop as an opportunity to sell more, and so we're coming down to lows in cumulative delta. So this flow that's been selling, could continue. I don't want to say likely to continue, but because there's just no way for us to know in this particular instance. But if it's a large meta order, those take a long time to execute, and so we could just continue to see selling here. Oh, S&P's not just green; they're pushing highs. Okay. So look at the change in the orders in the ES. Now this is a little bit more difficult, but you can see that the orders moved to the upside in a major way, right? And in all honesty, that could just be like end of week mean reversion kind of behavior. I didn't know that there was a new Cadillac Escalade. I don't think that you would ever see me buying one of those. So now, lead story, well, not lead, but latest story on Zero Hedges. 9 signs that the US consumer is about to break. I guess to try and counter that the consumer sentiment was good. Well, but it wasn't good. It was a little bit lower than expected, right? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the orders in terms of ES, the orders did turn positive there. And so I think that we should be kind of looking for maybe there will be continued buying in the indexes as sort of a mean reversion end of week sort of a thing. But the degree of the move and everything is not enough for me to really be like, for it to be really conclusive. So we've seen moves like this a lot lately that just completely retraced, right? So I don't think that we have any information to really give us a good idea of what it will do here. Oh, that's cool. Taking the sun out back to it, so I don't ruin my green day, but I just wanted to say thanks for all the knowledge. You've been trading since 2019, but recently, good job. That's good. Futures trading is fun. Like I've taken a lot of bad losses recently, but in the first one, like the one earlier in the week, that kind of got to me. But they just can't hold me down anymore. I just get over it. Next day we're back in, we're at it, we try again. I should be really bummed about how much this has come back on me, but I'm really not. I'm just focused on what is the next set of flows going to be. Okay, well, we did have some selling flows there. I'm now seeing that sell flow revert back up, so looks to me like I don't have enough support for my larger theory here about what will happen after. Looks like the dollar is pushing those lows again. Man, as soon as I said that, it's like it's down another 5 ticks. So frustrating right now. This is just really is an illiquid market. And that move up was like on hardly anything too. Like, I do see it does. I still see orders like taking the opportunity to sell this. So, you know, I'm a little concerned that we might be in a situation where like overall I'm right, but it doesn't matter because of the dollar, you know, that could happen to us. That's pretty rare that it's that bad, but it, you know, the way that this is starting to behave, it's kind of starting to feel like that could happen. Hmm. 17. Wow, they took out 17 half, 17, 16 half awfully quickly there. 16. And that is, again, the dollar reverting there. Maybe the dollar is, maybe it's because their technicals are kind of suggesting that the dollar is going to revert. Is it going to turn back to buying? I don't know. That was, wow. So slippery. I mean, a slippery market is great when it's going in your favor, but it can make it really difficult to get out. Pretty good price. You remember when you started? Oh, yeah, sure. Well, you know, I think that we really made huge strides after 2020, right? Because 2020 was when I started to realize in my own trading that it was like, you know what? The market is just really statistically efficient, and everything that I've ever done well was off of an informational inefficiency. And then I started to get more deep into the data and realize, you know, why that was. Like the ones I remember in particular was like the aberrations in the COVID data. You remember when like the S&P 500 would directly react to what the weekly COVID cases was? And it was like, well, it's a Friday, like less people come in on Friday and then they come back in on Monday, and that's why you're seeing this. And we started trading off of it. And the first 1 or 2 times that it did that, like we did really well from it, right? This definitely looks to me like all of a sudden we're like ranging off of the dollar. So one of the things I'm thinking about right now is it seems like there's a little bit too much movement in the ZN for this late in the day on a Friday. Like usually by this point, it's like the activity has died down. Yeah, I made some really big mistakes going into the COVID thing that, you know, I really could have done some amazing things during it. You know, I would love to get another shot at that thing, because so I'm noticing here Bitcoin's doing a little spike in FX. Macro says the SEC always solicits comments. Nothing to see here with BTC. So it sounds like maybe the Bitcoin market is buying off of some headline that doesn't actually mean anything. It will happen again. I don't know if it will ever be quite as clear as that one, though. Actually, you know what, though? Like, I wouldn't have traded through most of it because You know, like that was the big thing that I learned on that, is that like when you're hitting circuit breakers, it's probably better for the retail trader to just walk away, right? Okay, so this is now the third time they've come all the way back down here, and this time pushing a little bit more on the downside, and I continue to see orders come down short. We'll see if they make a new low in cumulative delta. I would think, you know, if there is a large meta order sell in through all of this, that they've got to be happy with how this has gone for them so far. There it goes again. Well, now the dollar is moving, so again, we're still in the... Yeah, it's just the dollar. Oh, but that was a new low in that's new low of the day in cumulative delta right there. Like, there's more net market order short than at any other point today. I think volatility will hit highs. The way volatility has played out over the last few months has been really weird, though, right? I kind of thought that maybe we would end up getting another one of those, like in 2019, was it? You know, like the bizarre volatility spike out of nowhere, you know, quant crash sort of a thing. But instead, we've just kind of had little spikes in here off of various economic stuff and everything. I missed that one. When we had that flash crash in 2019. What is it that we call it? I forget. There's like a more clear name for it, but oh my gosh, that was one of the most memorable periods of trading for me. So looking at this, I still seem to see some indications of a strong meta order sell in here, but he seems really patient to me. Like when he comes down to like those low areas where like a break of that would maybe change a couple of lines in the sand for certain people, then all of a sudden it backs off. And then they buy it back up, and then he has all of these orders to sell against again. So this may yet turn down further, but they may take their time with it. Because he doesn't seem like he wants to push these. And again, a lot of it does seem to be related to the dollar. So when our European markets will be closed, and then the markets can slice up little by little. Well, so I'm just trying to sort how might the flows change when the European close comes through here. I'm not sure. I'm definitely not sure what it would mean for us in the treasuries, but oh no, I was totally, I mean, all of the robots turned off is what happened. That thing that always bothers me off of the flash crash was that it really was the market makers turned off all of their robots, and they were able to completely avoid any kind of responsibility for it. They got left completely off the hook. How much time we got left? 20 minutes? Well, there was just a big ask put on there at 44.90 and a quarter in the ES. So something weird's going on there. It looks like there was some excessive amounts of trades on both sides. That might be enough to push us to new highs. Yeah, that was the whole Navinder thing. Basically what happened was he was order stuffing, and he basically found a way to like really screw over the robots, and it worked a little bit too well. And so the firms just like turned their robots all off, and then there was no liquidity, and so the market just kept selling and selling and selling. But like the reason why I'm saying what I'm saying is like, so how do you deal with that? Well, maybe you should have some market makers out there that are humans too, right? But nothing changed, you know? The robots have just only become more dominant, and their solution was to implement circuit breakers, right? And then you get the whole nonsense that happened in 2020 where it was like we were hitting the circuit breaker every 5 minutes and all that nonsense. Yeah, well, he worked a few techs and then he went on his own. But you gotta remember that, like, the market was really different in 2010, right? Yeah, that's Navinder. Well, he got screwed over because... He got screwed over twice because, one, the prosecutors were really tough on him, but then the other thing was that all of the money that he had made, he gave to friends in hedge funds, and they lost it all. So he didn't really get to benefit from his success in trading. It's kind of a weird take, right? It's kind of a weird thing in the end. That's why I say, I hope he writes a book someday and tells us, you know, some of the things that he was doing in relation to how he was trading. I think he would probably find some things that are like, okay, yeah, he's doing standard market making, but then I bet you're also going to find some things that are almost like superstitions on his part. Okay, that was odd. There's just all of a sudden a really strong increase in liquidity on the bid. As we moved up there, yeah, the dollar broke a new low there. You saw a little shift in the E-mini when that happened too, didn't you? What about Japanese yen? No, Japanese yen is basically hasn't done much of anything interesting lately. And the spreads, after the news, they steepened a little bit, and then it's been going sideways. Well, this is always my least favorite thing is when, you know, you're basically at the mercy of the dollar because the currencies can be really difficult to predict, right? The dollar is a real crapshoot sometimes. But despite that, like, push to new lows in the treasuries, it's kind of like, I do feel like they're kind of done. I guess one thing that you might see is like, I'm going to bet that the Europeans are short taking profits here. So if they've taken all their profits and they're gone, then and the meta order selling continues, then you might see the flows after the European more solidly in one direction. But yeah, the 10-year continues to try and sell this. So we are seeing the meta order, and it's just that the dollar's not cooperating. Very interesting. Especially since this spike here is just like off of that news. Oh, well, no, that was the 630 news. That's what that was. And there was that thing, and now, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it makes sense why the dollar's doing what it is. Ouch. I haven't found the cause for this decreased liquidity and a higher volatility in equities. Well, is it actually really decreased liquidity in equities? I can't really tell. I haven't been paying close enough attention over there. The treasuries are definitely illiquid, right? Like, they should not be moving as much as they are in this range. I'm really frustrated because it seems to me that the result of the low liquidity is that the dollar just completely dominates the action, right? Because my read on the flows is ending up being perfect. Like, that's what frustrates me so much here, is that like I had a good did everything right, and I'm reading the flows right, and it's not working out for me. Like, I thought today was like a turnaround, and it just did not work out that way, did it? We should have at least 100 per level. Well, you have almost 100 per level. I think some shorts are puking here in the ZN now. Woulda, coulda. I really wish that I had the foresight to be able to get out at 40 here when it happened. I was just like so in awe at how quickly it was falling that I just didn't even. It's almost well, I mean, I have them split by 4, but I see I'm doing tick aggregation of 4, but a lot of these prices do have 400s, do have 400 on them. Top Step good? Sure. They're the original. I'm really hating the dollar right now, man. Look, there it goes. Okay, so now that time the dollar slipped a little bit and the treasury didn't react at all. But we are seeing the Japanese yen rise a little bit. So there's some liquidity at 20 here, by the way. I don't know. The thing that I'm seeing is even though the resting liquidity is looking pretty iffy over here in ES, there are relatively large icebergs out there executing across prices. You know, I've seen many places, for instance, way back here at 44.73, where they traded 5,000 contracts in that spot, right? So, I don't think that the liquidity situation is as bad in ES as it is in the treasuries, for instance. This fucking sucks! Man. Dollar did reverse there. Dollar is coming back up, but now the treasuries are kind of like not caring. Or am I okay? I'm okay. I was trying to be funny. Was it not funny? I don't know. It's the funny thing here is that I still see the selling. I'm still seeing the selling, despite them coming all the way up here. So it's like they're trying to squeeze out some shorts here, but I don't know. I think that the big guys are going short here. It might not result in downside for us. So probably, you know, as this session goes on, the possibility of like more price movement declines more and more, right? But I don't know. There actually was a little bit of long volume on that one. I think that there probably was somebody closing out a position there and giving up. It is still good to get like a really long excursion out in it, right? But we need to get the profit from it too. I guess the thing is that I thought when I executed that I had gotten a really good price. So that's the thing that frustrates me the most, is that like I caught it as she goes, and like it, you know, it was immediately in profit, and like the way that all worked out was really good. So to see it come back to it, you know, this is a little frustrating. Yeah, you know, but the dollar shouldn't be that dominant, right? It's pretty unusual to see this divergence between cumulative delta and price purely because of the correlation with the dollar. Like when that happens, it's more like cumulative delta is flat, right? But it is what it is. I guess the larger problem I'm having here is that I'm having a hard time sorting out in my head how I would actually be able to deal with that, right? Because I could have chosen to take in a profit at some point, but that probably, if I had done that, that might have just been like luck of the draw. So Now, another thing that I'm thinking is that maybe I should have said when it came back 50% of the way that I should have bailed. I don't know. Had some sort of a trailing stop. But I don't know. It continues to do this thing to me, right? Like, it doesn't matter what I do, the market fights me. Oh. Okay. Well, so for today's title, though, PPI suggests inflation sticky. The 11th. And I guess we scratched this one. So I will see you guys on Monday. In the meantime,